So welcome you all participants of this live Q&A about karma here tonight on our Facebook channel. As said, this meeting will be live streamed now and recorded for later purposes so that others who cannot participate may enjoy the session as well. You can still, while in meeting, control your own camera. You can change your own name. You can even switch off your microphone. If, let's say, there is a background noise that we experience in meeting, we have the option of controlling your microphone so that we don't disturb the meeting for others. Before we do that, we will, of course, send you a chat so that we are not rude or impolite to you. But first of all, let me introduce us to you. My name is Tanya. I will be your host for tonight. I will have the task of taking care of your well-being and a flawless and smoothly running webinar. My co-host for tonight is Mary Rose Duku. She waves here. She will be picking up on your chats. If you have a question, you can, of course, when they pop up, use the chat so that you can, she can pick up on your questions and she can introduce it to the lecturer. Andre will pick up the Facebook questions. He's keeping an eye on the Facebook. And of course, Gildo at the background, he takes care of the live streaming. Hi, Gildo. And we have our guest for tonight, our lecturer, Jacek. And he is, let's say, the focus of the evening. Jacek will start in a minute with his introduction to the video lecture. You have maybe all seen the video lecture, so if you have any questions, submit them through the chat. And first of all, in a minute, we will give Jacek the podium. Before we really go ahead, we have some housekeeping rules. You have some features, some controls in meeting yourself. If you go down in your toolbar, you see an option, participants. If you go there, you see your name and all kinds of names, all participants, and you have an option of raising hand. So if you want to interfere or come up with a question, you have the option of raise your hand.
Could you, I'm not seeing where that option is. Could you?
If you scroll down with your mouse all the way down in your window, a toolbar should pop up and there's an icon, manage participants or participants.
Does it just say participants?
Participants, yeah.
Yeah, if I click on.
If you click there.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. See your raise hand. So you can test it if you click raise hand. Right. You raised hand.
Yeah.
And we know that you have a question.
Right, okay.
So we will watch that closely. But also, if you simply want to say something to us, but the lecturer is still in an answer, you can also use the chat box, which is also down in your toolbar, and submit your question there. And Mary Rose or Andre will pick up on your question.
Okay, so I'll lower my hand. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. If we see that you have submitted a question in the chat box, we will of course invite you to come up with your question yourself. So submit your question yourself to Jacek. If you don't want to do that, no worries, we will ask the question on your behalf. We will never force you to speak out loud if you don't feel comfortable doing so.
No, the last time the chat box, I had no option.
Oh,
because my microphone wasn't working. So
yes.
I had a bit of a technical issue.
So this is better for you now.
Oh yeah, I found it very frustrating trying to
Can imagine.
Because I'm not very fast and it's, you know.
Oh, well, we have time tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. We would like to ask you to mute yourself, your microphone, the icon in the bottom left, while Jacek is introducing the evening to us. But after that, we of course hope to go to a very lively enthusiastic and inspiring conversation. So if you don't have too much background, you can unmute yourself. That will enable and enhance the option for discussion, a live discussion. But don't feel forced to come up with your questions. You can always use the chat if that's more comfortable to you. We will start now by giving the word to Jacek in a minute for the discussion and the interaction afterwards. We try to limit the meeting to about 1 hour 15 minutes, maybe 1 hour 30 minutes, and after that we will conclude the meeting. So if you have any questions, just let us know through the chat, raise your hand, and we will get back to you. And for now, I will give the podium to you, and first of all to Jacek. Jacek, it's yours.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted that we're here together this evening to talk about not only one subject, but many subjects which lie in and on our hearts, because that's the most important element of the Golden Rosycross. And as you see, we talk about exploring the path in a worldwide community. And we have a worldwide community of the Golden Rosycross today, and we're bringing different subjects, different elements, and one of those elements, as was introduced this evening, was about karma. But I don't know how many of you have seen the interview about karma. Some of you have, some of you haven't. I'm not going to repeat everything there, but what I'd like to do is to say that the subject was not karma, it was beyond karma. So if we see that karma is cause and effect, we saw in the video that it's related to a Sanskrit word, expression, which means action. And for us, it doesn't only mean action, it means action and reaction. So cause and effect. And it's one of the 3 universal laws which governs not only you and me, but which governs not only our planet, but it governs the whole of the universe. So if we begin to perceive that, we can understand that everything we do, everything we think, everything we feel has an immediate effect, not only for ourselves, but also in our total environment. And maybe those are the sort of questions we could be asking ourselves this evening in the form, as Tanya was suggesting in the opening of our meeting, in an exchange. So not necessarily question and answers, but much more an exchange on yourselves, ourselves, what is life about, how is karma governing us, is it possible to break out of karma, are there different types of karma? These may be the sort of questions you feel could be relevant. And if you say, no, that's totally irrelevant, I don't want to talk about that, I only want to talk about this and this question, that's quite all right, I think, with me, with the hosts, with the co-hosts, and with us all, because we're here on a platform which is international. It's a platform of exchange within the Golden Rosycross. So within something which is so dynamic today in the world that, of course, we have to restrain ourselves a little bit, not to be too enthusiastic, but really get into a strong exchange between ourselves. I think I would like to stop there with those words of introduction and then hand over to you, because the point is, it's not to be passive and listen and say, this chap seems to know it, so I'll just write down everything he says and then I know what has to be said as well. That would be totally the wrong way of going about things, rather than to look into ourselves and find out those questions and answers in our very being, in our very essence. So in fact, it's over to you, over to us as part of this community to be able to share and to discuss together. So I'm stopping with my introduction. I have no problem with silence. We can spend the whole evening in marvelous silence. That's also harmonious, but a community means we can also exchange.
Yeah, it looks like there's a question here from Jose. Jose, would you like to ask your question? I can also, oh, I should unmute you, right?
Would you like to read the question then, Marriage Rose?
Yep. Just 1 second. Okay, so in a human, the divine component is the one which has experienced many lives and as a result carries in the elements of karma generated by the actions of dead humans. Thus, our current personality has access to those memories and could accept or attach itself to those karma. However, they are not its karma. So the personality could decide. So the personality could decide not to accept those karmas from the previous experiences of the divine component. In such a case, the current personality has only to deal with the karma in itself that it itself generated. Does this make sense? So basically that's his question.
Yes, thank you. Jose, it makes sense, but I think we have to go a little bit more deeply into that and confront some of the things you're saying also with the universal teaching. And I've opened the question so I can see it in front of me, and I'll take it part by part if you agree. In a human, the divine component is the one which has experienced many lives, and as a result carries in the lipika the elements of karma generated by the action of dead humans. Well, that's quite a mouthful. That's a lot which is said in a long sentence. You talk about a divine component. Yes, the whole of humanity is affected by what each human being carries in himself, in herself, which is that divine component. Absolutely. And the main religions also talk of that, and the universal teachings testify to the fact that we carry in our very being, in the geometric center of our being, a powerful force. And we can give the symbol of the rose. That's why we have the golden rosy cross. So we have the symbol there of the rose. It is also the lotus. It is also that eternal seed which is in every human being. Now, you say that our current personality has access to the previous memories. Is it only access to, or are we in fact created out of those past experiences? Maybe it's more like that. It's not that we have access and we can open or close a door and say, now I'm interested in this past. Oh, no, I don't like that one, so I'll take another one. That would be very nice, but it's not like that. You and I are totally constructed. We are totally living out of the previous karma that we have. We talk of the heritage, which is also inscribed in the DNA. It is also inscribed in our being. It comes from our blood inheritance. So if someone is born in England, someone is born in Ireland, someone is born in Latin America, in Africa, wherever, they carry with them not only their personal karma, but also the heritage in the blood, so of their parents, of their grandparents, and so on. And there is also another eternal karma that is carried. You talk about the lipika. We may have to come back to that because that's a word coming from the universal teachings. It means, in fact, the constellation around us. The astrologers would talk about the zodiac. So we could say that. It's maybe a little bit more complicated. So we can not only see that the personality can decide which karmas one should take on or not, because we are what we are because of the karma of the past. So the fact that we're talking together here this evening means that there is something which has matured in past incarnations, which allows us to ask these essential questions about life, about death, about karma, about the lipika, and our personality. So our personality is the result of karma. It is not only the result of our personal individual karma, not only our family karma, but also the planetary karma of humanity, of which we are a part. Your question was quite long, so I dared to go into an even longer answer. But we can take it bit by bit if you want, José. You can add something to your question or say, did what I mentioned or reacted to you, did it make sense or not? Or to others also who are in the meeting room.
We have Joseph here raised his hand. So I want to invite you to ask your question, Joseph.
Oh, thank you. Yannick, back in about approximately 2004, can you hear me?
I got confused with the two Joseph, but I guess, Joe, are you okay to let the other Joseph and then
No, I must.
Okay, four Joseph.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I didn't raise my hand. It's the other Joseph.
Oh, the other Joseph? Okay.
Yes.
All right, go right ahead, Joe.
Okay, yes, I put Joseph C now just to try to prevent any confusion. There's a few Josephs.
Okay.
Two Josephs and a Jose.
Thank you.
Yes, my question was, I listened to the lecture Beyond Karma, and you were mentioning there that, yeah, sometimes we have this idea that this is good karma, this is bad karma. And this can be kind of, yeah, we think if something, you know, happens to my body, some disease, this is bad. Or something comes my way, some wealth or something, this is good. But really this is very kind of illusory in a certain sense. And so my understanding is that because we're identified with these false personalities or the present personality, we say this is good, this is bad. It's kind of speculative. But is it possible for me right now in this moment not to be identified with this present personality and therefore to be beyond this so-called good and bad? You know, is there something right now in this moment that I can do? Because I think even if I try to say, you know, I'm not identified, this is neither good nor bad, I say it in words, but I still am identified, and I still experience feelings like pleasure and pain. So I'm just wondering what is that path, or what is the way to not identifying with this personality so that we can actually realize that so-called good and bad are illusory in a certain sense?
Thanks very much indeed. Okay, I'm glad you watched the video. So there were some elements which were mentioned in the video, and we said that good and bad is always relative. Maybe not to us here in this meeting room, but if we're on the tube or we're in a bus and we stop the bus and say, okay, folks, what is good and what is bad? You'll have many different opinions about the same fact. Some people saying it is good, some people saying it is bad. If they're having a heavy relationship, they'll say, the relationship with my husband is absolutely terrible. And the woman next to her will say, but the relationship with my husband is absolutely marvelous. So it's not the relationship, it's the type of relationship that is important. So we also said in the video that good and bad cannot qualify karma. You can only qualify karma in relation to the spiritual essence, in each and every one of us. And what I do or I do not do, does it ally itself? Does it unite itself? Does it correspond to the core of eternity in my heart? To the voice that I'm hearing in my being? Am I listening to that spiritual essence in myself? So identification is no problem, I think, Joseph, and also feelings are no problem. And maybe it is not to push those things away, but because by pushing away, what happens? You're creating action, reaction. And if you create action, reaction, you're creating karma. So the thing is to accept ourselves as we truly are. So not only as personalities, but also to accept ourselves as the carriers of that spiritual essence. So not to fight, not to struggle against what at a given moment in time we consider to be bad karma, or really have elation and say, wow, this is fantastic because this is good karma. Because then we're in the game of action and reaction. And by that we're creating tension. And if we talk of tension, we also then talk of violence. Violence doesn't begin outside. Violence begins in ourselves. And do we try to fight, or do we try to accept? And our personality is a fantastic tool, an instrument, something which you and I have, each one in a different way, with different talents, which can be and is an instrument which can be used for soul development.
Oh.
So what I'm trying to say is identification is fine. Accepting our feelings, accepting our thoughts is very important. And not fighting, but listening to that spiritual essence which is in the center of our being. Does that give you, Joseph, certain elements that can be helpful in our further exchange?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
But please come back to that. We can carry on further and open up the floor to as many people as possible, but without losing the stream of our exchange.
So Joe, Joe Gatsby, did you want to ask your question now?
No, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So follow up that question from Joe C. You know, you hear a lot about duality, this whole thing about good and bad. So now that you hear and read a lot about duality, is that what you're talking about, in a sense that they both have to coexist in order for it to exist in some sort of form, but at the same time not to label it? Is that what you're trying to emphasize?
I'd be happy to respond. Yes, that is exactly right, to observe that duality, to see what it is, what it stands for. And the whole of this life is duality. And if we fight against it, we're creating, as I was saying, a lot of violence to ourselves, to our environment, to our close ones, and to the world as such. So to look and to accept duality, which is a universal law, in fact. Duality is something which is part of existence. We see that everywhere. night and day, good and bad, and all the rest of it. But it's our attitude towards it. It is also a rule, or it is one of the elements of our existence, which is important, that we do not crystallize, that there is continual movement. Movement is important. So duality allows for that movement. And then it depends, are we going to the left, going to the right, or are we finding the central path, the middle path? The middle path, which is the path of the soul. It is the path of that spiritual essence, which is in every human being. I think I'd be happy to hear the second part of what you were saying, because I think I've only responded to the first.
So the second part is in regards to not labeling, because I listened to a seminar from Eckhart Tolle, and the way he said it is that we have to be very careful. For example, using a tangible product like a rose, telling a child that it's called a rose versus it is a rose. So by labeling something as a rose, quote unquote, it takes away that opportunity, like you said, being observant of the duality. Correct?
Correct. Correct. And I don't want to label your statement with the word correct.
That's correct. It's ironic. You can't escape it. And that's where it becomes so complex, is when we try to say it's either wrong or right, correct or incorrect, or even just to respond. And like you said earlier, not to be observant, then we create this vortex, let's call it.
We're creating vortexes, we're creating storms and tempests, we're creating everything this world is. And through our mind, through our emotions, through our actions, we are just continually maintaining this momentum of incredible suffering in life.
Yeah.
Huh? So how do we stop? How do we continue with our family life, with our professional life? We're not asking, well, the Golden Rosycross doesn't say go off and be a hermit, doesn't say go off and live in a cave somewhere, but then there are a lot of unpleasant animals and spiders and insects there anyway, so it may not be so pleasant anyway. It's this sort of idealism we have. The reality is the reality where we are at this moment, in an office, at home, in a flat, alone with others, and so on. And if we are observing, accepting, and allowing things to happen, then where we are will become something fantastic, because we are overcoming the duality, which is the third path. Not the path of the left or the right, but the middle path.
So what we choose to focus on is very important.
What we focus on is essential. But that focusing, which could be meditation, which could be thinking, which could be our whole being engrossed in that inner path, is not something which should deter us from living our life. Because where you and I are today, in the given country, in the given situation, in a given state of health, in a given economic, social condition, is because of the karma that I have mentioned. The karma of our parents, of the heritage, the karma of our past incarnations, and the karma that we accumulate during this life. So these are the three basic elements, constituents, components of karma. And we can go beyond karma.
I don't see any other question here. Anybody want to raise their hand for the next question? Oh, there is one. Another question from Jose. If I may read it, or would you like to read it? Give you a second or two. Okay, I'll read it for you then. If we accept ourselves as we really are and avoid reacting to what we accept, then do we stop the cycle of action-reaction? So if we accept ourselves as we really are and avoid reacting to what we accept, then do we really stop the cycle of action and reaction?
So accept ourselves as we really are. Well, that's a big question. Huh? That's an essential question. Who am I? Who are we? Because are we the personality that Jose mentioned at the beginning only? And in our exchange just now with Jose and Joseph, we have seen that the human being, which we are, the personality with its complex structures, also carries eternity in itself. So we are both eternal in some respects, but we are also natural-born beings. So there is already a dichotomy. There is already, yes, a duality in that. Because on the one hand, we have to accept ourselves as we are, as the person we are, but on the other hand, we carry eternity in our hearts. And we are not eternal. Our thoughts are not eternal. Our emotions are not eternal, because we see that in what we do in life. And sometimes we upset ourselves, we upset others, we upset people, we create difficult situations, because any difficult situation that we experience is not because of the outside. It's because of ourselves, in our relations to our work, to our employees, to our employers, to our family, to our friends, to people we meet on the bus, on the train, in the plane. If there are moments of tension and conflict, we are part of that, and we cannot say he was or she was the cause of that. So that's an incredible dynamic, isn't it? On the one hand, we have our personality with all its complexities. We can go into that, but we also carry eternity. So the personality, does it serve the ego? So I'm introducing another subject. Does it serve the ego? Does it serve the egocentric interests of being? And if our personality does that, we will continue to suffer. We'll continue to go up and down and be beaten up by life. But if the personality turns its focus and its attention to that inner voice, to that call of eternity, that's why we're here, I think, in this meeting room, not because we want to have a nice time in McDonald's or wherever, or sport, or no, we're dealing with the essential elements of life and death or existence. So if the personality does no longer act as the servant of the ego, but as the servant of that call, of that powerful spark of the spirit which we have in us, then we stop the cycle of action and reaction, which was at the end of the question of Jose.
Thanks, Jacek. There's another question that's kind of like a follow-up to that. Let's see.
Mary Rose, sorry to interrupt. Joe Glasby has a raised hand.
Oh yeah, we had a question from Facebook, so that's why I wanted to go to them and come back to Joe. But should we go to Joe first or go to Facebook? Because the Facebook question was there for a bit. Joe, would you wait for just 1 second? It's a quick question that has like a follow-up to what Jacek was saying. So Elilo from...
no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much. Elila from Facebook is saying, it is an inner process, but where to start? What is the first step?
You have already taken the first step. The first step is because the question comes from you. The question comes from your heart. And that question means that we have taken the first step. So, in fact, there is no path, because each step we take is already the path. Do you see that? If you have a goal in front of you, so of course, if you're running the 100 meters or the 100 yards, if you have a business plan, then of course you have a goal and so on. But spirituality is totally different. It's freer. It's much more open. It's real, in the sense that the first small step you take is a step already for and in eternity. Because by asking the question and saying, well, what should I do? The answer is there, isn't it? And if you want to follow up, I'd be happy to continue that.
Thank you, Jacek. And Joe, would you come forward with your question?
Oh, is that me, Joe Glasby?
Yeah, Joe Glasby.
Sorry, it's all the Joes. I wanted to ask Yannick, quite a few years ago, about approximately 2004, I happened to be in a part of the country, which was Glastonbury, and there was a spiritual master from India. He was head, or the spiritual master of the Garden Shatse monastery, Buddhist monastery in India. He had close ties to the current Dalai Lama. Now, I won't go into all the things I experienced when he was there. He was there with several monks for a period of time, and members of the public could attend various blessings and so on. One process I attended with him, and again, he was, his name, I believe, was Lapsang Tenzin Rinpoche. He was in his 80s, and to the best of my awareness, he was a spiritual master at the monastery in India. And we were told that one of the processes that could be experienced or gone through was karmic healing. And he, as a spiritual master, could actually help you in a karmic cleansing process. And I actually opted to do that. I don't know why, just at the time I chose to do so. I attended many other of what things that they were doing, but the one that's relevant to the conversation at the moment is the karmic cleansing, the karmic healing, as it was put at the time. So I want to ask Yannick, do you believe it is possible for a spiritual master on the earth to have an ability? Is that something that you believe is possible, or was I spun a line?
Thank you so much. I'll just correct my name a little bit. It's complicated anyway, but it's Jacek. So with
Jacek, I apologize, Jacek.
That's okay.
I apologize, sorry, Jacek.
Because if in a future video we're going to have someone called Yannick, then he'll be answering these questions and not me.
I do apologize.
Well, there's nothing to apologize about. It's okay. When you were talking, I picked up a few things. Number one was you referred to Glastonbury. Number two, you referred to a master. You mentioned Rinpoche, and he was someone really quite special. And I have read a very interesting account of his meeting with a Scotsman, so a little bit further north to where you are. The Scotsman traveled with him, and they were able to understand the yoga of Christ, which is quite something. But your main point was about karmic healing.
Yes.
I am with a master today, and for one reason and he assists me in karmic healing. No. This is a supposition. It's not like that. It's a supposition. And tomorrow, the master, for one reason or another, disappears. He's run over by a tram or a bus. Let's not think negatively about anybody. But he's no longer there. And then my karmic healing is up in the air because I was dependent on the process. I was dependent on a given master. Now, who is the master? I'd like to, I hope, comfort you and others that in the Golden Rosycross, we do not have masters. We do not have gurus. And in fact, when we talk of a spiritual school, we are all pupils of that spiritual school. But pupilship is like on a huge, huge spiral of soul consciousness, spirit soul consciousness, what happens at night during our sleep, and so on. So I hope I can comfort you to say we do not need an external master. We have to search for the master who is in us, in each human being. That is that eternal force. You can call it the master. You can call it the embodiment or the manifestation of that energy and that force. And then we listen to the master. Then we follow the master. And by that process of opening ourselves up to the spiritual essence, which is eternal, in your heart, in my heart, in everybody's hearts, we are undergoing a process of purification. Purification means not only physical, but etheric, astral, and mental purification. So it is also a karmic purification, and therefore also karmic healing. So as we undertake this process of listening to our inner master and allowing that voice to pervade our whole being, and that happens in a community. And why does it happen in a community? Because sometimes we have ups and other times we have downs. And that's the same thing for all of us in a community. And we can help each other on a vibrational level, not on a personal master-disciple or master-pupil level, but we help each other in those moments of difficulty because we maintain a certain energetic field, a morphogenetic field. And that is what a spiritual school is. So when you talked about Glastonbury, there are special places in the world that have always had a direct contact with what I would call the community of the souls. I would call it the universal brotherhood. They have been there, they have been temples. And we know that many churches which have been built on top of ruins of certain places of initiation for different reasons. That's another subject, maybe another video. But what is important is that, yes, there are special points of contact between high vibrations and our world on our planet. Absolutely. We cannot deny that. And there are communities that are working in the process of purification, of transformation, and transfiguration. And this is what the Golden Rosycross tries to do or does with those who are part of the community. And so karmic healing is a fact. It becomes an inner process of purification. So we can't just sit there and think about it and have videos every day and every night and say, here we are, folks, we know it all. No, because we have to take that experience and place it in our very center. So go beyond the physical, beyond the emotional, beyond the sensual, that means everything related to the senses, and go into the very core of our being, And that takes a bit of courage, because we have to go through quite a labyrinth to find our inner path. But it's absolutely possible to be healed of our karma. I've tried to take every point by point, Joe, and try to give you that opening and that view. But of course, if there are any other aspects that you'd like to go further, then I'm at your disposal.
Yeah, no, I think I can accept everything you said, Jacek. But may I just, for clarification, finally, very quickly, I know you made you made reference to gurus and disciples, and I get that, and I believe I understand what you were saying. But if a mystical guru who has attained a certain level of consciousness, in doing what they're doing for themselves and arguably for those who may be in their immediate vicinity, would you agree also that they are creating an environment within which another person or personality may benefit from that because of their radiations and their emanations that may be on a higher level of consciousness than those in their immediate? So what I'm trying to tie up with that, Jacek, is that even though, and I respect, that doesn't happen in the school, I get that, but for those and where it does happen, it is still a very positive thing that has a very real positive effect potentially for a pupil.
Absolutely. I can say yes, Joe, that is the case, with the only small remark that when you say they are doing this, they are also emanating a certain force, a certain energy of life, of love. It's not they, it's we. You and I have to go through that process. And if you have the smallest spark of light in your heart, which is beginning to vibrate, you're already having an influence on your environment. So we have to take those things not as being historical or that there are those who are superior. Of course, there are superior entities, superior beings to each and every one of us. But our task for each and every one of us is to do it as well. And it is totally possible to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacek. Thank you, Jacek. Thank you.
Bonnie was waiting very patiently. So Bonnie, you want to come forward with your question? You muted? Hang on. Your audio, we can't hear you. Can you? We're not able to hear you. While you're figuring this out, could we maybe go to the next question? But Bonnie, can you hear me? Okay, while Bonnie's working on her audio, we will go to the other question. We had another question from Facebook. What is the difference between karma and dharma?
Huh?
What is the difference between karma and dharma?
Marsilio, if that was you who asked the question, or maybe not, but somebody else from... I'm in a situation where I can't give you a clear answer on that one. I don't know now mentally how to show the difference or present the difference between karma and dharma. But if someone wants to, in our group this evening, wants to lead on that subject, I'll be happy to follow through. If someone can give a short indication what dharma means and how, then I can relate it to karma. I've come across the word and the expression, but it's not something which is living in me, so I cannot explain it very clearly. I don't know if somebody else could. Any volunteers?
I could say something about that.
Good.
This is Joseph C. I think it's a little tricky because Dharma has a couple different meanings, but Dharma can mean just duty, the right thing to do. Like when a person acts dharmically, that would be acting according to what is truly right in a situation. But it has other meanings as well, like a thing's nature, a thing's inherent nature is its dharma. So you could say the dharma of sugar is sweetness, you know, something like that. So it has a couple different meanings, but the way it's usually used is that if to act dharmically in this situation would be to do the right thing.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to read you a quick definition of Dharma. It means the essential order of things, an integrity and harmony in the universe and the affairs of life that cannot be disturbed without courting chaos. And there was a story from Hinduism, which I'd like to read. A sage seated beside the Ganges notices a scorpion that has fallen into the water. He reaches down and rescues it, only to be stung. Sometime later, he looks down and sees the scorpion thrashing about in the water again. Once more, he reaches down to rescue it, and once more, he is stung. A bystander, observing all this, exclaims, "Holy One, why do you keep doing that? Don't you see that the wretched creature will only sting you in return?" "Of course," the sage replied, "it is the Dharma of a scorpion to sting, but it is the Dharma of a human being to save." Right? So if we move and we are liberated from karma, we move into Dharma. We move into the essence of who we are as human beings. The work that is attributed to us as human beings is that of service, is that of liberation, not our own liberation, but the liberation of others, the liberation of, and without being pretentious, the liberation of humanity. And to be involved in the process of liberation of humanity, you will say, and quite rightly, we have to overcome our own karma. That's linked to the discussion we had with Joe about purification and about doing it. And that same thing which we were discussing a few moments back with Joseph about the duality. So if we accept, and that was your first point about identification, we as human beings are the carriers of eternity. And as the carriers of eternity, our task is not to fly away because we are liberated, but by liberating ourselves, that one step that we take, we then can enact Dharma, which is the essence and the spirit of the reason of our existence, to become active in the liberation of others. Because we don't liberate ourselves individually and then just fly off. That's an ego trip. That's egocentric. But if we realize we have to break out of that egocentricity and open up to a process for others, then we are involved in a world process which doesn't belong to the Golden Rosycross community, doesn't belong to you and me. It belongs to the whole of humanity, but it's manifested through these different spiritual schools, through these different communities, and through each and every one who is going through that process of soul rebirth. Well, I'm glad we talked about that, and I can feel much more comfortable in the future when someone asks me about Dharma.
Wonderful, wonderful. We had 2 hands raised, so I'll start with Bonnie because she was really patient, and then we had some trouble, and then I'll go to Karenza afterwards. Bonnie, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So my question sort of is a follow-up to the question immediately you just explained, and a question earlier that was addressed. I feel like there is a not contradiction, but it's a line that I always have trouble drawing, is how active you should be in your Dharma. Earlier, I think, if I heard correctly, I think the teaching was, you know, accept yourself, accept your Dharma, accept your karma, and then that's part of the waking up. That's part of the taking a step towards liberation, towards getting rid of your karma. And then I heard the story of this lizard stinging the person who's trying to save him. In that case, this person, you know, go out of his way, try to fulfill his Dharma. So I always have this question or dilemma, I feel. In other words, how much should I push my ego into the uncomfort zone to achieve my Dharma? Is it really just accept myself, that's enough? Or I really have to strive to improve myself? But there, then we go into, you know, the infamous problems of being dichotomous, you know, what is good, what is bad. Like, but a simple example, like if on the street you see someone fainting, how much is it enough to call in 911? Is it enough to stay there until the ambulance comes? Or is it enough if this person doesn't have money, you pay for his medical bill just merely because you happen to be passing by when he fainted? And in terms of time you should put in, maybe you're on your way to work, maybe you're on your way to attend to your own sick family, maybe you are not even feeling well. So where is the line to draw? Where is, I mean, like all this time I would feel two voices in myself, you know, I don't know. One is said, that's enough, you already done enough. The other one said, no, but maybe you should do more. So which one is my ego talking? Which one is the soul? I mean, I don't know. The you know, I think you got my question. I just don't know how much self-improvement is called upon us. Can we really just accept ourselves and then things will just happen on its own?
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thanks so much, Bonnie, for that. You took us through the whole process of accepting oneself, waking up, you said. So we are all asleep. We have eyes but do not see. We have ears but do not hear. This is exactly that. And if we're talking of liberation, then who are we liberating in this process of purification? We are not liberating our ego. Our ego is the obstacle to liberation, is the obstacle to soul liberation. So then it is not a matter of improvement, because there are thousands of groups, institutions. You go down any high street and you'll find them to find balance, to find harmony, to find love and all the rest of it. But if that is based on the ego, which means the egocentric way of being, of living, so then it is for oneself, to oneself, and you try to improve that, then you create culture. Then you create a beautiful external gown that people can wear, but underneath you still have the ego. So this process requires that inner courage to look at ourselves as we are. And when you talked about these two voices, I think that's a very good example. And we go through that every day in our lives. Should I help or should I not help? Or should I go further and to take it to an extreme, create an organization of people who will be standing on the corner of every pavement trying to help other people. Yeah, but that's not it. That's not it, because your particular karmic setup at that given moment, you said, oh, I happened to be there. But where we are at a given moment and we see someone dying in front of us, or wanting to take $1 or £1 or a franc or a euro from us, that is the situation we're in at that very moment. And then do it. That's the Dharma. You don't have to create an institution for it, but you do it. And then you will see in yourself, I felt great. Yeah, I'm going to stand on the pavement the next time and give out money everywhere. So then you get into an ego trip. You get into an institutionalization of charitable works and so on. So it's not that, okay? It's not that. So it's not, but I'm coming back to the essential thing. It is not to improve. It is to accept, to observe, and allow the force of light, which is in our heart, which is there, to have the space, to have an effect, also on our ego, through a process of surrendering, on our personality, as a process of serving, and out of that will grow the new soul. And that new soul is linked directly to the light. And then the personality becomes the servant of the soul. And then if you meet a person in need, you will do what you have to do, but not for self-improvement. It's in fact dying of the old I, dying of the old will to discover the new will in the very depth of our being. You wanted to react, Bonnie?
Well, but on a practical level, back to my question, where do I stop? Where do I stop as soon as I feel like I've done my share? Do I feel stop as soon as I feel like I have another obligation to fulfill, so I have to leave now? Let's say I do not feel the ego. I don't feel the ego satisfaction after I've done something. Let's say, so that does not give me any indication where to stop. Okay, so where do I stop exactly?
If you're saying, where do I stop in serving, of being useful or of helping, you don't stop ever, because the whole of life is serving. Do we understand each other or not?
Yes, I understand that. Yes, that's a lifelong journey. But in that particular example, I feel like in my daily life, I always face this. Like, I always feel like I do not know what to do. Like in that specific example, if you run into that situation, where would you stop? Do you stop at, just wait, call 911, wait for the ambulance to arrive? Actually go with them to the hospital because they say they don't have a family, and then you pay off all their medical bill, and then you keep in touch with them because they don't have that. Where do you stop?
Yeah, that's marvelous, Bonnie, that you have these questions which are real existential questions for you. Where do we stop? And your state of consciousness, okay, your state of being will be able to indicate to you not external morality, not principles, not what the Rosycrossians or anybody else is saying, but you in yourself will know how far I need to go and can go in this support. Because the true support we can give to others, and I respect fully doctors, nurses, and all these institutions that are helping us, helping others. But we become doctors of the soul. It is to be able to help souls who are seeking the light. And you are doing that. I'm doing that, I think. And many others are doing that as well. They are looking for truth, for freedom, for love, for the reality. And all those elements exist at this very moment. And maybe the contact you have with the person who has fainted, and because you are operating already on also this level of soul being, of life, you'll be able to help. You will devote time to that person because it is your particular karmic load that you have to satisfy. So there is no general rule that one can say to him, to her, or to the other. Each one has that relative freedom to know what to do or should do at a given moment. So even if you're frustrated with my reply, I'm not going to give you a prescription saying it has to be like this, like this, like this, because each one of us has to find in that inner autonomy the answer that is there. It's there, certainly. But we can come back to that, Bonnie, if you wish.
Thank you, Jacek. Now, Karenza, you want to come forward with your question? You're muted.
It's related to something, well, the answer that Jacek gave about Dharma and Karma, and then I think also to Bonnie's comments. Jacek, you mentioned first we sort out Karma, then we come to Dharma. But I was thinking actually more along the lines of what Bonnie was saying, in terms of first we find Dharma, and then that sorts out our Karma for us. What I mean by that is Dharma being do the right thing. There's part of us that kind of knows what the right thing is. So like Bonnie, you were saying in your situation with the injured person and you don't know how much to do for him, should you just stop straight away or should you do more and more? But we've all got a sense of intuition, and I think our sense of intuition connects to a very deep part of us, to the soul. And if we can really link with that and listen to our own sense of intuition and our conscience too, which I think ties into that, then if we can connect with that, then we know what to do. We know what to do in the situation. Perhaps you stay with the man and then the ambulance arrives and they've got everything sorted. So it feels right to go at that time. And I think if you can follow that sense of intuition, I think you'll probably be going in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Karenza. So we're talking here about different senses. So we're talking about our 5 senses, but then we also have intuition as an additional sense. We also have our mind or our reason, which is another sense. And as we link, and I completely agree with you that it's not sequential, it's not karma, dharma, it's accepting one's essence, and by accepting one's essence as we are today, the spiritual essence, we are undertaking a process where the links or the chains of karma are then gradually undone. So it's not one after the other, it's taking place simultaneously. And then each experience is valid. There are no bad experiences. So in that example, if things turn out not only to help, but it becomes something really difficult and heavy of working with that person for one reason or another, then that experience will teach us what we have to do the next time, and so on. So we shouldn't avoid experiences. On the contrary, all our experiences are very useful to get to know oneself. So we don't hide away in a community, in an organization, in a book, anywhere, or in ourselves, but we live life as it has to be lived. And that experience, one experience after the other, makes us mature in our processes. If we just don't continually go on from one experience to the other. If there is, as you're saying, and I heard Joseph was also saying that, to listen to that inner voice, to that intuition, because it's there. So it's that inner voice that is helping us going through life. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yeah, very good, thanks.
I don't see any more questions on this end here. Does anyone in front of me here want to raise their hands or just want to question? I can unmute you and then can hear your question or comments of any kind.
I can see still Karenza having raised her hand. Maybe Karenza?
I forgot to put it back down.
Oh,
okay.
No problem.
I can put it down for you.
Yeah. Right.
It's an enormous process of self-knowledge, of looking at ourselves as we are, but not only as I beings, as personalities, but also as potential or as soul beings. And that duality creates an enormous arena of not struggle, but of experience. And that's so important, that we are in the world, we go through all our experiences, but at the same time, we know that there is a force which is generating the whole of the universe. So each human being to another purpose. And that other purpose is to enter into eternity, but not after death, not after a given moment in time, but now in the process of where we are. And isn't that that's the message that has been given continually by all Gnostic and other spiritual schools.
Jessica, I just wanted to say, well, since I'm also in the public work, sometimes we have this question coming to us, can one erase their karma in this world? Is it something possible?
Can we erase our karma? If I take it literally, the answer is no. If I take it, can karma, which is the luggage which we talked about, the three aspects of the blood inheritance, the previous incarnations and our own activities in life, can the duality of good and bad be erased? Yes, it can be through the process of the surrender of the self, the surrender of the ego. And the surrender of the ego as an energy and as a force means that at a given moment when the heart sanctuary is open, when the head sanctuary is open, and when the sanctuary of life is open, then those three levels of consciousness are beginning to have an effect on the whole human structure and dynamic. And then the ego will be pushed out, will be propelled out of the system. So one of the causes of our continual increase of karma, one way or the other, will be eradicated from the system. And then a being that is serving, is acting as a soul being, a bit what Joe was saying in terms of the influence that he or she may have on his environment in a community, means that one is no longer adding or subtracting from the duality, but one is adding to what is vertical and what is eternal in each human being, and then for others as well. So then, yes, the light clarifies and cleans out the darkness. So
Thank you so much. And I see Joe Glaspie, you have your hand up. I'm trying to unmute you now.
No.
Relating to Bonnie listening. I was listening to what Bonnie was relating. It may or may not be helpful to you, Bonnie. Many years ago, I came across a process when Jacek talks about us, the purification process, and trying to connect as much as possible with our true essence, the divine essence, the divine spark within the heart. There was a process I came across several years ago by a chap called Joel Goldsmith. He was American. I believe he was a Christian mystic, for want of a better way of putting it. And there's a process you can look at, and it's a sort of a meditation, and you literally ask to go deep within your own heart. You literally ask to go within and ask God or the divine essence to speak. And you do that possibly daily or whenever, if you've got 5 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever time you can give yourself to that. For me personally, I can only relate for me personally. I found there was sort of shifts that I detected within me. I can only comment for myself. But I detected significant shifts within myself when I started to use that. I mean, I'm still work in progress like everybody else. But I did, I believe, discern a positive shift. So I don't know if Jacek would agree with this, but my simple understanding of that process that Joel Goldsmith used, and many others probably use, is the more time we can find a way, whether it's that way or a different process, the more we can actually spend time daily, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour or half a day, whatever time you have, to find a process where you connect with that inner, that ultimate inner, I call it in the Christ, in his process. He calls it connecting with the Christ light within us. The word may be possibly not so important. I don't know. Jacek may have a comment on that. But the process, you whatever time, even if it is only 5 minutes a day, yourself, your entirety, your physical self, your energy self, your consciousness, the more you spend time with that every day, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, I believe that, my understanding anyway, is that helps with the law of association or correspondence. The more time our consciousness is in contact with that, the more it raises our vibrations. And if I've understood correctly what Jacek was saying, that is a big part of purification. It's both things. It's a sort of act of purification and raising of the individual's vibration, and maybe in some level raising our luminosity, if you like, the light within us. And the more time we spend connected to that, the brighter we get. Sorry, but again, this is very personal. This is just my personal experience. So whether Bonnie wanted to look up Joel Goldsmith's technique or somebody else's, I found it useful, which may help those decision processes. I mean, mine's what it is. I'm work in progress. I do the best I can. But I just suggesting that because it may possibly be helpful to you. And I don't know if Jacek's got a thought on that.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. Many of the things that you've been saying coincide, I think, with all our exchanges. And as you were talking, I was thinking of Bonnie and what she was saying, and then my thoughts went to her even further. And, you know, Bonnie, and maybe Karenza followed up as well, you care for people, you care for others, you care for the suffering, which you may meet on the street or you may not meet on the street, but the fact that it preoccupies you day in and day out is an indication of something, isn't it? It's an indication of love. It's an indication also of care. It's an indication that our life is not to be led and lived only for ourselves, but also for the others who are in need. And to be able to do that strongly we have to be strong, not outwardly, but inside of ourselves. And then linking to what Joe was saying about these moments of correspondence, these moments of silence, that is what happens, for example, in the Gnostic community of the Golden Rosycross. As a community, we come together to be able to also experience that force of silence, that force of the other one in us, but not out of egocentric interests, but out of that aspiration to be of help, to be of use, and to be caring for others. And there is no contradiction. It is, one is then completely linked in with the other. So I was very appreciative of this last, as with many of the other comments, but also what we have just exchanged. Is that okay, Bonnie? Is that okay, Carenza? Are we moving in that direction?
Bonnie, do you want to answer?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Jacek, and that was very helpful. Actually, I was with a Christian meditation group. So far, I haven't found it yet. It's been sort of a difficult task for me to hear a clear message from within. Sometimes I feel like I see the sign, but not, but very subjective to interpretation. I just don't know what exactly that's, what it's saying. So, but I guess I'll keep doing that. And I have another, I don't want to hold up too much time, maybe just a quick answer to this. Is sort of also related to Jacek, what were you saying, like this mind opening and heart opening experience, is it also physical? Because sometimes I feel like it's, I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel like it's something, can be something physical, or I don't know. I would love to hear, because I'm not there yet. I'd love to hear your experience.
The experience is very much that we cannot dissociate something vague and abstract with something which is physical, because then it's purely mental. It has to have a relationship to the physical, because the physical body, with its structures, with its billions of cells, is linked to the more subtle bodies, the etheric and the astral body, and to the mental body in its development. And we are a complex being of all these atoms which electromagnetically are interlinked to make us what we are. So we're walking, we're standing, we're thinking, and it is also linking us electromagnetically in terms of the atomic structures with every other human being on this planet. We are all interlinked in terms of these energies and forces. So yes, one can feel that when one has these moments of connection or of silence, this inner peace that one can find, then necessarily it is there and it radiates outwards. And I've just seen a message from someone on Facebook.
Yes, we have a couple of questions on Facebook here. I will get Jose's. He tried early on. So it's a statement and also kind of a question. So egocentric action is mostly a reaction. Thus, it is karmic. Essential action is just action. Thus, it does not expect a reaction. Then is dharmic.
Okay, so we're going back to the previous discussion we've had. That's great. So let us say yes, egocentric action is mostly a reaction. That's why one talks of being reactionary, and therefore it is karmic. Absolutely. And Dharmic action expects no response, no reply, doesn't expect a reaction. The reaction is irrelevant because you're doing it. You have to do it. And that's linked also to what Bonnie was just saying, that it's a state of consciousness, not that we want to create a humanist system of helping other people, but because of your state of consciousness, the only essence of life is to be with others, is to help others. Yeah?
Very good. Thank you so much. And there is Karen. She's saying that last year I felt the Gnostic love strongly, like an illumination, like falling in love, and it lasted for days. Why I can't feel it anymore? Just a little bit in my meditation now. What happened?
Yeah, that's marvelous. Thank you very much indeed, Karen, about this question of love. That sometimes it's like an illumination. It comes and then it just goes. And what happens? Then we try through our memory, our mind, to reconstruct that moment when we were in love. So then instead of, and then we're creating an illusion because we're trying to hold on to the past. We're trying to identify ourselves with what I experienced as love. And the more I analyze it, the more I reflect on it, the further it'll go away. Because one is not moving into the essence. One is moving into, through memory, through thinking and so on, to something which is an illusion. So what is more important is to regain that inner connection, because love is not something which can be contained. It's not something which can be defined, determined. It is. And if in that split second of an inner meditation or of silence or of a connection, we are linked to that love, then it is there again, because it's there all the time. It's like the sun behind the clouds. You may say it's a cloudy day, there is no sun, but the sun is there. So in our own clouds, we also have to create openings to realize the spiritual sun is always there. Always there. Always there. It's we who are not there. But don't try to fight it. Don't try to humiliate yourself, but accept yourself. Let it go, let it be, as one says. And by doing so, the link can be reinforced. But as soon as you want to identify with it, you want to hold on to it, then you're defining it, and it's not love anymore. We can't hear you. Your mic. Mary Rose, your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So Joseph has a comment. I don't know if you want to come forward and say it, because I don't know which Joseph it is. So if you want to maybe raise your hand. Well, I'll read the comment then. So he's saying that there is so much suffering in the world. The seeker comes to the point where addressing the suffering of the soul becomes the way forward of all other suffering. So that was his comment.
Joseph, thank you very much. Maybe you wouldn't have made that comment right at the beginning of our video, but I feel that now we're coming to grips with those essential realities, because isn't that so, that there is enormous amount of suffering? Bonnie, you've described it, Karenza described it, but that suffering is everywhere, and it's not only physical, it's existential, it's mental, and it's existential and mental with people who have millions in terms of possessions, but they are suffering in their ego, they're suffering in their very existence. So a seeker of the light, someone who knows that the light or love, as Karin was expressing it on Facebook, that love is there, and that harmony is there continually. But we're not in harmony, we are not in love. So as seekers, we realize that it is through soul growth, not ego growth, not personality growth, but the soul, the new ensouling power that goes through all the bodies, is then linked to the suffering of everybody else. And by that, we are decreasing the suffering. So coming back to the subject of karma, it's like a being on scales and a balance. If we have our karma, it's going to weigh us down in this way. But as we let go of the karma and give soul energy, then it begins to move in the other direction. And that move in the other direction has an incredible effect on, as Joe and others were saying, on our direct environment, on not on only who we are, but on everything that happens around us, for good or for bad, so to speak. You see that? That it is that process of finding the balance, and in finding the balance to tip the scales, and then we can associate ourselves with the suffering without being the cause of the suffering. We cause the suffering of others through our egocentric being. So by decreasing that, surrendering that, and allowing the personality to serve the light in the heart, so entering into the heart, listening to the heart, giving it space. We're giving space to love. We're giving space to eternity during our life. Not in the future, not sometime, but now, at this very moment.
Thank you, Jacek. This may be a good moment to conclude our meeting for tonight or tomorrow, wherever we are. I would like to thank you wholeheartedly, Jacek, and all you participants for sharing all your ideas, constructive thoughts and questions, and share it with each other. And I think Jacek enabled us to see clearly that it's specifically our karma that makes the path. Because our karma invites us to take a next step. And it is exactly that next step that allows us to cleanse us from our karma individually. The karma, and we are our own doctors, we are our own cleansers. And we hope that we could cast a new light on the topic of karma. We had the idea that maybe you had so much questions unanswered that you would like to have another session. We have another session planned, actually, for next Monday, 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so same time as today. But I'm not sure if you want that. So what we're going to do is launch a poll, and you can simply reply if you want to meet us again next Monday, or do you think, well, no, for now, I leave it here. Oh, I still have to vote. Well, Jacek, you're in.
What? Sorry?
You're in. 75% of us wants to come back next Monday for going on with this topic. So Yeah.
Sorry, I was told the poll was closed when I submitted my answer.
Oh, sorry. Well, what did you submit, Joe?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
So it's 80%. Sorry, Jacek. Well, we'll be here for you next Monday then, 8 p.m. or Greenwich Mean Time.
Thank you.
And it could be that others will also join us because, of course, we'll be announcing this possibility not only to our part of the community but to everybody else.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, perfect. The recording will be made available by our YouTube channel, Lectorium Rosicrucianum. If that's correct, Andre? You can find it on the internet. No, it's Golden Rosycross? Yeah, yes. It's Golden Rosycross. So you can find the recording there. It will, of course, be also published on the goldenrosycross.org community, where you can find it within a week time, possibly. We will, of course, make clear how you can join next Monday's meeting on the website as well. You can find all details there within a day or so. We have already planned the launch of a new video lecture. The new video lecture will be published on Friday, March 22, after which the live Q&A, the webinar like this one, will be held on Wednesday, March 27th, 8 p.m. Central European Time. So for now, that's all the announcement that I have. You can also visit the website if you want to know more. Check the website for the inward journeys that are still running. You can still join the inward journey of 12 live explorations weekly in a setting like this. So please go to the website and check out if there's maybe a time zone that you can still sign up for. And also you can find local public events that you can attend, like lectures. For now, I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank the team that stood behind us here, and Jacek especially. And I would like to give Jacek the final word for this evening. And for now, say hello. So Jacek, please go ahead.
I'd like to share with you the following words. The disunited mind is far from wise. How can it meditate? How can it be at peace? When you know no peace, how can you know joy? When you let your mind follow the call of the senses, they carry away your better judgment as storms drive a boat off its charted course on the sea. Use all your power to free the senses from attachment and aversion alike, and live in the full wisdom of the self. Such a sage awakes to light in the night of all creatures. That which the world calls day is the night of ignorance to the wise. As rivers flow into the ocean, but cannot make the vast ocean overflow, so flow the streams of the sense world into the sea of peace that is the sage. But this is not so with the desirer of desires. They are forever free who renounce all selfish desires and break away from the ego cage of I, me, and mine, to be united with the Lord. This is the supreme state. Attain to this and pass from death to immortality. Dear friends, these could be thoughts for our next session, so next Monday, and bring your friends in and talk with others. And if you would like to have definitions or themes or subjects that you would like to raise as a follow-on to what we've experienced today, then please do so. I'm sure that Tanya will be able to indicate to us how you could submit subjects and themes that we could then explore together as we continue next Monday. Thank you.
Yeah, you can submit your questions through the mailbox in the Q&A group. If you go to how can I join groups, you will find the Q&A group. You can join that group, and in that group you can submit your questions. You can also, of course, submit your questions directly through email, the Golden Rosycross community@gmail.com for the time being. We will pick up on that anywhere. Yeah. So for now, I wish you a very, very good night or day, wherever you are. And we hope and we sincerely look forward to welcoming you back soon. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye now for now. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.